Hi, thanks for listening to today's podcast. I'm Jeff Davis, and I hope you're enjoying your summer so far, are maskless, footloose, and free to enjoy your life as you did once before. I'll tell you, I'm seeing a lot of tourists here in Sonoma and Napa wine country. It's great to see people traveling and having fun. Okay, enough chatting. Let's hit the wine road.
Well, we have a great team. We have employees that have been here over 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, and we're just a big family.
And I'm like, what is this place? So I run out to my car. I drive out, out Bodega Highway, past Sebastopol, out toward the ocean, walked to the top of this hill and looked out over everything and was like, this is it. This is world class.
He's Anthony Beckman, the winemaker at Balletto Vineyards in Russian River Valley, Sonoma County. He shares a crazy story of how this former newspaper journalist saw the writing on the wall, so to speak, and pursued a career that supports his other love, good food and excellent wine, that he now makes. Owner John Balletto chimes in as well. As a former wine club member of Balletto, I know their product fairly well, but never had a chance to spend time with Anthony. They've gone through some changes the last couple of years, so it was good to catch up. And boy, did he start me off well. It always doesn't scare me, but it's like when I walk in to do an interview at 10 in the morning and there are 9 glasses waiting for me, I'm thinking, okay, well,
that's a good day.
There goes the day is what I'm thinking.
I'm thinking it's a great day. That's the perfect start. People always ask me, oh, what a great job you have, making wine. And I say, well, you're welcome to meet me at 7:30 to taste 100 barrels before we start making a blend. And the first 10 are pretty fun. And the next 10 get a little, and then by the time you're on your 50th barrel, it's work. And this is just fun, though. This is finished bottled wine, and I like all these wines, so it should be a great time.
Well, I'm very familiar with the brand, but there are some that you've been releasing more recently that I'm not so familiar with, and I think I have had your sparkling before. It's a nice sparkling rosé, light color, but I always like a little Pinot Noir in my sparkling wine. I'm not a Blanc de Blanc fan, so it's nice to have some color. And interesting that when you hold it up, it looks like Chardonnay. When you put it down on the white paper, and you get that pink color.
Yeah, and it's the color is so important, right? I mean, winemakers freak out about color on rosé more than I think any consumer would ever know. To me, this is like just the perfect tinge of pink, orange, yellow, all kind of put together. And it's a really unique, very delicate color. Again, if you hold it up straight into sunlight, it's going to look white, but you see it on a placemat, and it's got this gorgeous little tint. And that is, 60% Pinot Noir, and the other 40% then is Chardonnay. So it's real traditionally made in that method, and bottle fermented and aged 5 years on the yeast lees after fermentation. So very classic style, classically made rosé.
And a classic flavor and delicious.
And delicious. Again, it might be early in the morning, but this is like a perfect wake you up kind of wine. It's not a sweet, unctuous, thick, yeasty style of sparkling wine that you can get. It's much more finessed, a little bit tart. The dosage is really low, so you don't get a big sugar hit, and you get this really, really gracious sparkling wine.
Anxious to hear you talk about your Gewürztraminer too. How nice that you guys offer this now, because there's not much of it around, and it is good here in Pinot Noir Chardonnay country to have some options. And what a fine wine this is. Boy, it's so different, and the aroma and the flavor is just very pleasing.
It is, and I love making this wine. And there was a time in Russian River Valley not too long ago, recent history, where every winery had a Gewürz. It was like, one of the arrows in the quiver. Gewürztraminer should be planted here. It's a cool climate grape, planted in the cool climate Russian River Valley. The issue is economics, right? You could put Chardonnay in this same spot, sell it for twice, or Pinot for that matter, sell it for twice or triple or whatever the price point might be. And, it's still just as expensive to farm. And then you have a wine that you can't sell for as much money, or grapes you can't sell for as much per ton. And every year in Russian River Valley, Gewürz is being pulled up and planted to something else. which is a shame because you can make just this gorgeous representation of a wine that to me is, again, classically Gewurz. You could smell this with a blindfold on with 20 wines and go, oh, well, that's the Gewurz. I nailed one out of the 20 because it's very distinct. It's got bright fruit. It's got spice. This is not made in a sweet style either. It's a dry Gewurz. There's, less than a half a gram per liter of sugar, which is basically nothing. And you can taste that. And it's fresh and bright and crisp, clean. Really just a pretty wine. A wine that I drink a lot.
Oh, yeah. It's so soft, too, on the tongue. That's what I like about it as well. And, the flavor is so unique and the aroma. And I wasn't much of a Gewurz fan years ago, but warming up to it. And this one makes it really easy to drink.
Yeah, and I love it. And, I do a lot of super racy white wines with high acidity. Gewürztraminer is sort of traditionally a little less acidic. It loses its acid sooner, so you can pick it sooner and not have high alcohol, but not have this huge acidity. So in the lineup of things, it's a little bit more, especially for our spring releases like Pinot Gris and Sauv Blanc, it's a little bit more just mouth-feeling and hedonistic. I think of it always as our hedonistic springtime white. And then you get into to the Pinot Gris and the Sauv Blanc, and you can taste the acidity bump, And so it's really different. It stands out on its own, and it's just so much fun to make.
So are you suggesting that the Pinot Gris I'm going to drink next is the racy one?
Yes, much more racy than the Gewurz for sure. So the Pinot Gris, Pinot Gris gets a bad rap in this world because there's so much Pinot Gris that's being cranked out. It's like the giant Pinot Gris grinder, and they're grinding out this really pretty boring Pinot Gris. A lot of that is they're planting it where it's too warm. They're planting it at huge crop levels. This Pinot Gris is grown in the Sebastopol Hills, so southwest of where we're sitting, straight that way. At elevation, it's right next to our very best Pinot Noir vineyards. A lot of people don't understand that Pinot Gris and Pinot Noir are almost identical genetically. There's one or two small mutations that make the Noir black, grapes black, and the Gris sort of this bronzy bronze. Otherwise, they're really, really similar. The morphology of the cluster is the same. The ripening is the same. The leaf is almost identical. And when you take Pinot Gris and you plant it where great Pinot Noir is grown, you get really distinct, pretty awesome Pinot Gris. And it's really just a travesty that it's misplanted throughout the world, I believe. There's very few places that are doing it to this quality.
I'm getting a little bit of a green note on it, that's different from a Pinot Noir. Yeah, otherwise pretty similar.
Yeah, I would say so. And I've done this before where every year it's pretty racy, and so I'll send a portion of it through malolactic fermentation. This is all neutral oak fermentation, so it's going into neutral oak barrels as juice, going through its entire fermentation as juice in barrel, and then I'll look at it at November of the same year, and I'll decide which barrels I'll send through malolactic fermentation just to take the little bit of edge off of that racy lean side. I want a little bit of weight, and so I'll do the neutral barrels to do that, and then I'll do a little bit of malolactic to do that as well.
You accomplish that, yeah. There's certainly noticeable acidity, but it's not a searing acidity on it by any means, and which makes it very easy to drink. And I don't know if that's what you mean by racy, but yeah, it's very drinkable.
And you know what? We had a case of the 2012 was just found, and stuck in the back corner. And so they go, what do we do with this 2012 Pinot Gris? And I'm like, I don't know, let's try it. And we opened it up, and that wine aged great. I mean, had just a little bit of honeysuckle to it. Otherwise, it was just exactly what you'd expect it to be. And I was really pleased that, this little lowly Pinot Gris, non-noble, as they say, grape, could go, 8 years, 9 years, no problem. And it was just singing.
I just saw you on Instagram the other day with the mystery case.
Oh, yes.
Was that the mystery case? Hey, we found a box.
No, it wasn't. It should have been. We should, throw in a 12 Pinot Gris just to I would have no problem presenting that wine as a mystery case wine. It was really fun, but it was not in there, unfortunately.
I'm with Anthony Beckman, the winemaker at Balletto Vineyards in Sonoma County. I told him that when I was reading his bio, I had one of those wide-eyed moments where you go, what? As I discovered, he used to be a newspaper reporter in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia.
I was. So I went to school at the University of Missouri for journalism. So I have a bachelor's of journalism.
Columbia.
and it was very good. And I did, student newspapers and newspapers in Missouri, and then ended up on sort of a postdoc gig, even though I was an undergraduate, landed in Washington, D.C., and this was 1994. And Newt Gingrich had just done his contract with America and had come in, and it was all a big hubbub. Yeah. And there's nothing better than having a press pass in Washington, D.C., because you can have free access everywhere. I sat in on Clinton's State of the Union address. I was like right above him in the press gallery, and I was a young kid. I was young. I was 22 or maybe younger. And it was just an awesome, awesome experience, top to bottom, to be there. And then I left for Philadelphia, which the Inquirer at the time was one of the great newspapers in America. It won Pulitzer Prizes, was really good, and they were hiring young reporters to go work in the suburbs, trying to expand the suburban coverage of the Philadelphia Inquirer. And that was a great education too. I worked with editors who had won Pulitzer Prizes, and you'd submit your copy to them, and they especially for me, they'd rip it to shreds, right? And there's nothing more learning than having somebody who's really good at what they do take something you've done and just shred it, and take 20 inches of something and make it better in 10 inches, and you go like, wow, they're really good.
What a learning experience.
Awesome, just an awesome experience, and all the people we meet. And the best part about being a journalist was that you had this business card, and it was like free entry to wherever you wanted to go. So you'd see like some construction site, and you walk down and go, hey, what are you doing? Yeah. What's this? Or you'd see a million things, and you could just have free entry to say, what are you doing? That's really interesting. And I met people doing really impressive things. And that was the best part. There were some not best parts, which leads to wine, right? The internet came out, and daily newspapers got hit pretty instantly, right. And I could see the writing on the wall. And this is the late '90s, and the writing was really on the wall that daily newspapers were not what they once were, and that the times were changing.
So
it's
that quick, huh?
That quick. You don't think about it now, but the want ads, the classified ads in your daily newspaper, that was the bread and butter that made the whole engine turn. And so you'd spend $4.50 for an inch of, wanted used car, whatever. And that was like 20 broadsheets in the day. It was a lot, and it was a lot of money. Yeah. And Craigslist came out, and that dried up within 6 or 8 months, just instantly.
Wow. Holy cow, you don't think about that if you weren't in the industry. But I certainly was one that was using Craigslist at that time.
Yeah, for sure. And it was like instant, and you could feel it shrinking. You could feel the pressure. And I think there was a lot of newspaper ego going on. Like, nobody will ever want to read the newspaper on a computer. Everybody wants the paper copy in their hands. And so these newspapers, I think, could have owned Craigslist, because they could have said, oh, now we're online. And instead they go, no, people don't want that. People don't want that. Well, people did want that, and they still do, obviously.
And it became a little more accessible with the invention of the tablet. So you didn't have to be sitting there at your desk to read it.
For sure. So, this is, the early 90s, before your cell phone could do more. The cell phones were chunky, big. They barely fit in your pocket at this time. And now it's just a whole new world.
What brought you out to San Francisco?
Yeah, so I called up. That's a long story. I called up my brother who lived in San Francisco, and I said, you know what? I am not real happy with journalism, and I have no money, and I don't know what to do. And he said, come to San Francisco. This was his exact quote. He goes, come to San Francisco. People who can't read are making $50,000 a year, because everything was booming, right? It was the dot-com boom, so sort of the opposite. And I kind of hung up the phone. I go, no, I don't think I'm ready to go to San Francisco. And then he emailed me that night a one-way ticket, Philadelphia to San Francisco. And so I flew out and crashed on his couch for a while. And within like 2 days, I had a job paying $50,000. And we laugh about that all the time, because he was like, it was like 2 days, exact price he said. And then I did technology stuff for about 3 or 4 years, but spent all my time and money in Sonoma County. Every weekend, every second, talking to winemakers, tasting wine, coming through here. And it's like, okay, this is what I really need to do, is somehow make it to Sonoma County.
We kind of skipped over when you were back east and had these great opportunities as a journalist, you developed a flavor for good wine and food back then, in the culinary arts. And so, yeah, coming out here was like your Garden of Eden.
Oh, for sure. I've always been a huge food and wine person, even going way back. And so for me to come here and come to California and of course, Sonoma County, it was like, this is it. This is it. And it really was just a reinforcement of everything that I was doing. When you're not in a wine country or a wine place, you don't realize that people actually make a living doing this. Right? It just doesn't feel like when you're in Philadelphia, you have a bottle of wine from California or from France or from wherever, and you don't just realize that, oh, wow, somebody does this for a living and gets paid for it and gets to make wine. Because it just doesn't cross your mind. And then you come to San Francisco and then, of course, day trips to Sonoma County. I'm like, wow, people are doing this, and I want to be part of it.
What a fortuitous series of events. His brother offered to help him, but little did he know he would create a whole new career for him. But it wasn't easy for Anthony to get into the wine business and eventually Balletto Vineyards. He worked hard, which also enriched his experience, as you'll hear. He realized he needed to further his education, but prior to signing up at UC Davis, he worked a harvest in New Zealand, furthering his interest in viticulture and winemaking.
The hard part about UC Davis was actually getting in. I had a bachelor's of journalism, of course, and I had no science. And so I spent 2 years in Sacramento going to junior college there. And it's, biology, microbiome, organic chem, every sort of hardcore science class. And I was taking 18 credit hours at a time. So I was packing them in as fast as I could to get it over with. And at the same time I was working, and this was the greatest part actually, was I was working as a wine buyer in a small market in Sacramento, Taylor's Market. So I would load up all my classes in the morning. So I had this infamous 7 a.m. calculus class that I was always late to. But anyways, I would do all my mornings, and then from noon until 8 o'clock at night, I was working as a wine buyer and working as a wine steward in this market in Sacramento. Great experience. Yeah. And then I would study from 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night until about 1 in the morning. And then I'd wake up at 7 and I would do the whole thing again. And
wow. For 2 years you did that?
3 years, because I did junior college first. Because like I said, nothing from a journalism degree. I have a bachelor's of journalism and a bachelor's of science. And so nothing really transferred in terms of the hardcore science stuff that you had to do. And it was an awesome education simply because my mornings were very technical, very focused, very science. And my afternoons were the exact opposite. It was totally hedonistic. I'd have these salespeople come to me and they'd have a bag full of wine, and I would taste 40 or 50 wines a week. And I did that for 3 years plus. Yeah. And, everything from $5 wines, from some $5, Malbec from Mendoza. And then it would go up to a $500, first growth Bordeaux. And I had the whole thing, and wines were cheaper back when I was doing this, so I tasted everything. I just tasted everything, and it was this awesome combination of technical, very focused, to, oh, I love wine. This is delicious. I'm going to buy 10 cases of this. I'm going to stack it on the floor, and I'm going to buy 6 bottles of this, and I know just the customers to sell it to. Mm. And it was really good experience, both. And I can't imagine one without the other. I would have been half an education to only do Davis or to only be the wine buyer. I think there was the whole 3 years of just this wine immersion on all levels that really lit me up, as a winemaker.
What a great experience there, too. And I was wondering if surely that being the wine buyer and tasting all those wines has helped you as a winemaker in what you're preparing now here at Balletto.
Oh, for sure. The honing of your palate is really important, and always will be. I think back to those days where I had a really broad knowledge that was not very thick, but I knew everything, right? I knew all the little producers. And now, after being at Balletto Vineyards for 15 years, I have a very narrow knowledge, but it's really deep down to no, I don't want the medium toast 3-year oak on this. I want the plus toast 3-year oak on this, because I know from making this same wine for the last 15 years, what it needs. So my knowledge as a wine producer is or as a wine drinker, consumer, I guess it's really, really narrow. Yeah. But I just know that the depth of it to make these Balletto wines. So it's kind of switched, I went from broad and thin to very, very narrow, but incredibly deep.
Do you taste one of your Pinot Noirs and think, oh, this tastes like the wines from Pommard in Burgundy?
I don't. I really have avoided that at all costs. I've even, people will say, oh, who do you look to as wines you want to emulate, your neighbors or friends? And I have a few, and really I don't want to emulate anyone. I have my own vision of what all these wines should be. It's way up in the sky, and you make these decisions, and I call them binary decisions or left-right decisions, because once you make them, you can't go back. Yeah. So, when do you pick? Oh, I'm picking here, and so you're setting off on this trajectory, and then you slowly try to go left, right to get to this big picture. This is what this wine should be. Yeah. I'm doing 22 wines a year, 6 Chardonnays and 9 Pinots and some Zins, 22. And I know what each one of those should be. I have it in my mind. I know exactly what that wine should taste like. I have yet to reach it to my goal, but I'm get closer every year. Okay. It gets there, and then I also need like 5 years before I can emotionally let go of a wine to actually appreciate it. Because I'll taste it, and when I'm tasting like any of these wines, the first thought is, oh, I could do this better next year. And it takes me about 5 years to forget all the turmoil that went into each vintage, and each has its own, ups and downs. Okay. And then once I forget that, I can look at them more as a consumer, as opposed to a winemaker. It's really hard to taste wines and not just pick them to pieces.
Yeah. I do the same thing when I hear my interviews.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I should have asked this question, or I could have done that better.
I blew it there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Anthony Beckman, the former journalist who gets to play in the dirt and the cellar. I suppose he often played in the dirt as a journalist, too. I'll take a pause with Anthony and catch up with owner John Balletto when we continue on the Wine Road.
The historic Mount View Hotel and Spa is a 33-room, family-owned boutique hotel located in the heart of downtown Calistoga, California. This distinctive hotel features original architectural elements complemented by Art Deco interiors. Welcoming amenities include 2 restaurants, Amaro Italian Kitchen and Johnny's, a full-service luxury spa, the Indy Blue Salon, a beautiful pool, Mineral Springs Jet Spa, lounge areas, and this summer, a safe, enjoyable outdoor movie venue, the Moonshine Theater. A stay at the Mount View Hotel and Spa is not only enriching for the soul, you can change the world while you sleep. Their Change the World While You Sleep program contributed 50% of their profits to children, health, women's, and environmental causes. Currently, the Mount View is hosting dinner and a movie fundraising events to support local nonprofits. For the schedule of movies and more information on Wine Country's most unique hotel and spa, visit mountviewhotel.com.
Now, let's get back on the Wine Road. A few years ago, I had the chance to interview John Balletto, who started from humble and challenging beginnings. And things sure have changed over the years, so I'm glad he stopped in to say hello and chat with me for a few minutes. John, good to see you again. Thank you for joining us here.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you so much for having me and also being here with our winemaker, Anthony Beckman. It's great to be with you again.
He's filling me on some of the things that have been going on here, and I know last year was tough, and we talked a little bit about how you got through it, and like many wineries, you had great support from your customer base and the consumers, so that's certainly good to hear.
Yeah, last year, not only with COVID, and then we had the wildfires happen end of August, and so one of the hardest harvests for us that we've ever been through, but so great. We had a great team, and we got through it, and every day was an adventure. And, we're so blessed to have all the customer support and consumers, wine club members, and fans tasting our wines and purchasing our wines and helping us to get through that time in business where a lot of people didn't survive that and unfortunately had to close their doors. And we've been pretty fortunate.
I don't want to go too deep into this topic, but with those August and September fires, were you able to salvage a lot of the fruit on the vines, or how did it go for you?
Yeah, so we salvaged at least 95% of the fruit on the vines. And so having our winery also helped us to bring in any excess grapes and turn them into wine. And actually, great winemaking team led by Anthony and his crew did a great job on the wines, and we're very pleased with what we have. For the most part, we were pretty fortunate.
That's amazing because you have vineyards across Sonoma County, and I imagine because of that, you have a lot of people that you oversee and that are you feel responsible for. But I hear that you did a very good job in keeping everybody employed throughout last year, and I imagine that harkened back to your early days when you started after your father passed away, and then you had to just pull up your bootstraps and attack the business. And what a fine job you did with that.
Yes, we in harvest time we would be starting at 2:00 in the morning, work until probably 5:00 that afternoon. And I will say we have 110 employees between the winery and the vineyards, and we did not lay off anybody during 2020 or 2021, and so we're pretty pleased with that. And everyone in our company was vaccinated. We had one person decline it out of 110, so we were pretty fortunate to get everybody 99.99% vaccinated, and everybody has just been great and keeping on the safety procedures so that we just keep moving forward here and hopefully getting life back to normal each one day at a time.
During the last year and a half or so, and I could be wrong on the timing, but you were building an event center here at Balletto Vineyards, and Anthony took me over there, and I got to peek in, and boy, that thing is huge.
Yeah, we built a beautiful hospitality event center to kind of complement our wine tasting patio, and we want to showcase our wines and have some nice music here and just places where people can come and have fun, listen to some great music, enjoy some food, and also, if we have events for 50 or 100 people, just a great gathering spot.
Excellent. Why don't you update me on your daughters? Jacqueline, I know, was working here for a while, and I understand she's back east now going to school. What are the plans there?
Yeah, so Jacqueline handled our direct-to-consumer department for 3 years after graduating from Fresno State in a business degree in ag. And she's now back in Boston going to Tufts University to get her master's in business. Wow. She has one more year, and we're hoping she'll come back. All indications are she will. And our youngest daughter, Katerina, works for a local tea company, Traditional Medicinals, doing marketing. So she's having a thriving career there and enjoying that. So, yeah, both kids are doing very well, and appreciate you asking about them.
Well, it's been fun to see this place expand over the years, this new office center you have that I guess now is, 3 years old, and it's beautiful. And the event center, and it's been fun to see you grow and do so well here in Sonoma County.
Well, we have a great team. We have employees that have been here over 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, and we're pretty fortunate that the great people we have, they stay here, and we're just a big family and growing together. And our goal is to be involved with the community, make sure our employees have a great place to work and are supported and grow the business. And to do that in the middle of Sonoma County, one of the top 5 areas in the world for growing Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, we're pretty blessed.
Yeah, and especially having Anthony. He's been here, 17 years now?
15th harvest coming up.
15th harvest coming up, and you were here before in the cellar as well. He was telling me that you guys have a really good working relationship.
Yeah, he's been here since January of 2007. And so, yeah, we have a great time working together. And during harvest, we're talking 20 times a day. And the goal is to do as much in the vineyard as possible before we bring the grapes in here so that we're hopefully picked at optimum numbers, bricks, pH, acids, and things, and also taste and flavor. And we make pick calls up to that afternoon for the next day. So it's a very, very strong relationship, and I so appreciate having Anthony here, and especially his family, Alyssa, and his 2 boys, Quinn and Jack. So I can't say enough.
Well, I know you're a talented businessman, but I think you are also someone who was blessed because you have so many things working out so well for you.
Well, I appreciate that, and life's been good to me. So we all have ups and downs and everything like that, but it's been a great run, and we hope it for many more years to come. And my wife Terry, who also been a big part of that. She's been part of the business since 1988, helped with the vegetable business, and we have the Teresa Chardonnay, which is fantastic. It's been since 2005, and then she was also a big part of our first sparkling. She loves sparkling, and her and Anthony got together and decided to make the first sparkling in 2010. It's, again, a family company. Sure. I mean, our office staff, Monica's been there 23 years, and those are really important longevity relationships that we have.
Well, hey, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Nice to see you, and thanks for sitting down with me again.
Great, Jeff. Thank you very much.
The calm, collected John Balletto. Although, with the roller coaster ride offered by the wine industry, he may not always be that way. But he is the kind of guy who is easy to admire. Now I'll turn back to Anthony. Just prior to this point, he poured me 2 of the Pinot Noirs he makes from the BCD Vineyard and Sexton Hill, both of which my wife and I truly enjoy.
BCD Vineyard is planted in 2001, and it is very much what we consider, the Santa Rosa Plains. It's you come into Santa Rosa, and there's the flat parts of it. This is just starting to get hills. Soils are a little bit heavier. And you get a wine that's got a little bit more viscosity, a little bit more weight, a little bit more dark fruit, a little less tannin, a little less acid. So it's a more lush style of Pinot Noir. And then you go, 8-9 miles southwest, and you go past Sebastopol and out Bodega Highway, and you hang a left. You go to the 400 feet of elevation, 500 feet of elevation into the Sebastopol Hills. And the Pinot you get is opposite, it's much more red fruit focused, much more spice focused, more acidity, more tannin, more structure to it. That's not based on a weight, a mouthfeel weight, but really based on tannins and acid. And the two are like the two different worlds of Pinot that we see in Sonoma County quite a bit. And they're both really fun to make. They're just really fun to make, and they're different, and they should be different. They're from different places, and they speak of where they're grown.
And they're both fantastic in their own realm. I love the Sexton Hill you were just talking about was one of our favorites.
And again, each wine should tell a story. Otherwise, why keep them separate? That's really the goal of this is the place. I'm really lucky as a winemaker that everything is estate grown, meaning that we have complete control from pruning through leafing to watering to the pick dates. And I've been making wine from BCD since 2008, right? So I've been making these from the same rows, the same grapes. And that knowledge is really impossible to get unless you've lived it. It's sure. Knowledge through living it and doing it for 10 years plus. And that's where we're really fortunate. I think that's how we can make them all kind of shine is we're just so intimate with the land that we're farming and that John Balletto owns, and we're walking it all the time and talking about it and thinking about how to best express the place, the grapes, the soil, the climate, the year, and to also express our sort of artistic vision of what Pinot should be, and it's kind of everything in one package.
And aside from that, you also get to make some Zinfandel.
I do, and ironically, the Zinfandel comes from the BCD Vineyard, which we just had the Pinot from.
And if you don't mind me interrupting, I would say that for people who do not like Zinfandel, this is like a Pinot Noir style of Zinfandel because it's a little more restrained, has a slight candied flavor to it, and that's almost maybe a misrepresentation because I don't want to give people the idea that it's candied. Yeah. But I do get a little bit of that. So if you're not a fan of Zinfandel, try the Balletto Zinfandel.
Yeah, for sure. And I love this wine. Zinfandel, I think of it as this huge spectrum of what it can be. And on the far, far side of this, you have something that is really high alcohol, usually has a little bit of sugar, is a lot like port, is 15 alcohol plus, really viscous, thick, sweet. I kind of tend to like those wines because they certainly have like a sweet spot taste for me. I don't drink them very often. They have a place in the world, and then it runs, tick, tick, tick all the way down. And on the very opposite end, you have this Balletto Zinfandel. We're growing this Zin probably on the very edge of where you can get Zinfandel ripe. So whereas I pick the BCD Pinot Noir, it's one of the first grapes that I pick every year. Happens usually in August. The Zinfandel, which is just across a dirt road, I don't pick that sometimes until November. So, end of October, early November, and it's wait. It just takes forever because it's cold there. Outside of Sebastopol is a lot cooler than, outside of Healdsburg. And, it's only 15 miles or whatever. Yeah. But the difference between this Russian River Valley cool climate Zinn and a warmer climate up in Dry Creek is incredible. And every year, this wine is very similar. It's really hard to make. It's really hard to grow. And it comes in, and I'm always kind of cursing it under my breath. And then I put it in bottle, and I'm like, oh, it tastes just like last year. Oh, it tastes just like last year. Tastes just like last year. It's incredibly consistent, and it does. It's this bright red fruit, acidity. It's got more of a Pinot texture, as you said, than a thick, heavy Zinfandel port-like texture. Mm-hmm. And it's really fun and pretty and ages incredibly well. We had an 05 about 2 months ago, and we were just laughing at how good it was because it's always sort of the second child to Pinot for us. It's always the stepchild. It's always last. By the time it comes in, I'm burnt out. I'm ready for harvest to be over. It's like, when is the Zinn going to be picked? I'm done. And either I wait until I can't take it anymore, or I wait the day before we get the first winter rain. And that's how I make the pick call on this. Leave it out as long as you can.
You mentioned the fact that it takes years to develop your style and what you expect. Can you see leaving a place like this and starting over somewhere? And I could see where that'd be interesting because it'd be something new and different, but then you got to start all over again.
Well, I'm certainly emotionally attached. There's, like the Sexton Hill Pinot that we had. I had been working for John for about 6 or 8 months. This was in 2007, maybe early 2008. So maybe I'd been working for him for a year. And he comes into the lab and he throws these blueprints down on the lab table. And he goes, you know what? I just bought a vineyard. And I go, oh, that's kind of cool. And he goes, yeah, you want to plant it for me, design it and plant it? And I go, yep, I do. And he walked away, and I open up these blueprints, and they're big, 36-inch by 24-inch, big, thick engineering blueprints.
You don't think of a vineyard being on a blueprint.
No, you don't. And so I got this, and I'm flipping through it, and I'm all, this looks great. And, I Google Maps it right away because I've got the address. And then I get to this page, and it's elevation. It's the elevation page, and it's color-coded. And so flat is white, and then it goes, 10% gray is such and such and such. And it goes up to like 35, 40% slope is bright, like neon red, like this alert red. And I flip that page, and 3/4 of it's red, and the rest is like bright yellow and orange. And I'm like, what is this place? So I run out to my car. I drive out, out Bodega Highway, past Sebastopol, out toward the ocean, go up the hill, and I walk to the top of this. And it was an old, not well-kept apple orchard. And walked to the top of this hill and looked out over everything and was like, this is it. This is world class. And I knew it right then and there, and came back and spent the next 6 months designing it, row orientation, irrigation blocks, clones, rootstocks, soils, top to bottom, which John let me do, which was incredible. And so, would it be hard to leave? Yeah, that's like, I'm the only winemaker in the world that's made wine from Sexton Hill Vineyard. Yeah. We've never sold one grape to anybody else. I'm the only one that's ever touched this. Same with Cider Ridge Vineyard. Same with our new Paletti Vineyard. And I'm attached. John has always been supportive of all the needs. He's invested a lot of money into this building. And now you walk through the winery and you're like, well, you could make any wine you wanted in the world here. That the facility is a benefit now, as when I first got here, the facility was a little bit of a liability. And John recognized that and invested into this vision of where it is today. And now it's just awesome. It's just an awesome place to make wine.
What a pleasure it was to hang out and taste with Anthony Beckman and see owner John Balletto again. If you live somewhat locally, drive out on Occidental Road north of Sebastopol and pay a visit. Or try their moderately priced wines at BallettoVineyards.com. Balletto has 2 L's and 2 T's. Find more interviews, wine trivia, and event news at onthewineroad.us. I'm on Facebook /onthewineroad. Go ahead and like the page if you would. And I'm on Instagram as JD Wine Road. The show's theme was composed by Miguel de Oliveira and is researched, written, and produced by me. And I thank you for listening. I'll see you next time on The Wine Road. I'm Jeff Davis.